Jack had never imagined that one day a single decision would change his life forever. As a soldier stationed on a quiet human colony far from Earth, he had always believed that life would be routine, until that fateful day. The sky above the colony darkened as alien ships descended from the heavens like a swarm of metal locusts, each one as massive as a mountain. The alarm bells rang in the colony, shaking Jack from his sleep. He quickly pulled on his uniform and grabbed his rifle, his heart pounding in his chest. The enemy was here, and it was time to fight. The humans had been at war with these aliens for years. They were a cold and ruthless species, known for their powerful weapons and overwhelming numbers. The two sides had clashed many times, but Jack had always thought that war would never truly touch him. That was until today, as Jack ran through the streets. The sounds of explosions and gunfire filled the air. People were running for their lives, and the military was in full swing, doing their best to defend the colony. He made his way toward the center of the fight, where the enemy had broken through the first line of defense. The aliens were relentless, their soldiers towering over the human fighters, their dark armor gleaming in the flames of battle. Jack could feel the ground shaking beneath him as the alien ships unleashed wave after wave of energy blasts. They were unstoppable. Then, in the midst of the chaos, something caught Jack's attention. A small figure, barely visible through the smoke, and dust was running towards him. It was an alien child no older than 5 or 6. Jack's mind raced. What was an alien child doing here? Was it lost? Or had it been abandoned by its people? Before he could think more about it, a blast from an enemy weapon sent a shockwave through the air. The child was thrown to the ground, caught in the explosion's wake. Jack's instincts kicked in. Without thinking, he rushed forward. Diving to shield the child from the next blast, the child screamed in terror, but Jack couldn't focus on anything but protecting it. As the explosions grew closer, Jack grabbed the child and threw himself. Behind a large metal crate, he felt the heat of the blast against his back as it sent a sharp pain through his spine. But he didn't care. The child needed to be safe, and Jack would do whatever it took to make sure of that. His vision blurred, and he could feel the blood rushing to his head. He realized too late that his spine had taken the brunt of the explosion. Pain shot through his body, and he felt himself slipping in and out of consciousness. But through the haze, he heard the child's cries, and he knew he couldn't let go. "Stay with me," Jack whispered, his voice barely audible. "You're safe now." Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. Finally, the sounds of battle began to fade. The explosions stopped, and the gunfire became distant. Jack's body ached, and he could barely move, but he knew the child needed help. With all his strength, he managed to pull the child closer, holding it in his arms as he struggled to keep his eyes open. He was still alive, but barely. He had saved the child, but at what cost? His vision faded again, and he felt his body give way. The last thing he saw, before he lost consciousness, was a pair of strange alien eyes staring down at him. They weren't filled with anger or hatred, but with something he hadn't expected to see: gratitude. Jack woke up in a sterile, quiet room. His body felt heavy, as if every muscle and bone had been shattered into 1,000 pieces. But the worst pain came from his back. He could barely move, his spine aching as if someone had twisted it into a knot. He blinked a few times, trying to clear his blurry vision, but everything around him was still blurry. The air was cold, and the smell was unfamiliar, different from the human colony's scent of oil and dust. "Where am I?" Jack whispered, his voice dry and hoarse. His hand tried to reach for his neck, but it was difficult. Something was wrong. A soft click of heels on the floor echoed in the silence, and before Jack could speak, a woman's voice answered. "You are safe now, soldier." Jack turned his head toward the sound, still struggling to focus. A figure stood in the doorway, a tall alien woman with deep blue skin and glowing eyes. Her features were sharp, almost regal. She stepped forward, her presence commanding the room. "Who are you?" Jack asked, still weak from the explosion. "Where am I?" "My name is Lyra," she said, her voice calm yet filled with authority. "On my ship far from your colony?" Jack's mind raced. He had been brought here by the enemy, the aliens who had attacked. The memories of the battle rushed back to him. He remembered rushing toward the alien child, shielding it with his body. He remembered the explosion and the pain that followed. Had it all been a dream? Did we win? Jack asked, trying to sit up, but his body refused to cooperate. Did the humans fight them off? Lyra shook her head slowly. Your people were pushed back. The battle is not over, but your actions. Your actions have changed everything. Jack was confused. Couldn't remember anything he'd done to change the course of the war. He had only tried to protect the child. What are you talking about? He asked, his voice tinged with frustration. What did I do? Lyra walked closer to his bedside. You saved my child, Jack. You shielded her from the explosion with your own body. She would have died if not for your bravery. Jack's heart skipped a beat. Your child? He looked at her with wide eyes. You're the enemy leader? Lyra nodded. I am the mother of the child you saved. My people call her the future of our race. Without her, there is no future for us. You didn't just save her, you saved all of us. Jack's mind was spinning. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The enemy, the ones he had fought against for years now, saw him as a hero. How could he, a human soldier, possibly be their hero? Why would you help me? Jack asked, his voice filled with confusion. I'm just a soldier. You should be angry. You should hate me. Lyra looked down at him, her glowing eyes softening. Do not hate you, Jack. I have no reason to. You showed compassion in a world where such actions are rare. You gave everything for my daughter. For that I owe you more than words can express. Jack wanted to argue. He wanted to remind her that they were enemies, that war had torn their worlds apart. But the sincerity in her voice made him hesitate. He had never heard an alien speak like this before. I did what anyone would do, Jack said, his voice growing weaker. I just wanted to keep her safe. Lyra took a step closer and sat beside his bed. You are not just anyone, Jack. You did what few would have. You sacrificed yourself without thought for the future. It's rare, even among my people. Jack didn't know what to say. He was still processing everything. The pain in his body was unbearable, but the weight of what Lyra was saying was heavier. He had never expected to be in a position like this. The aliens had always been cold, cruel even. He had never imagined that one day he would save one of their own. Thank you, Lyra said, her voice soft but sincere. Thank you for saving my daughter. You will not be forgotten for this. Jack wanted to speak, to ask her about the war, about what would happen next, but exhaustion overtook him. His eyelids felt heavy, and soon the room around him faded into darkness. When Jack woke again, the pain was still there, but his mind was clearer. He noticed a small figure standing at the foot of his bed. The alien child, the one he had saved. She was staring at him with wide, curious eyes. Her skin was a pale blue, almost glowing in the light. She had a small smile on her face as she watched him. Are you all right? Jack asked, his voice still weak but full of concern. The child nodded, her smile growing wider. Thank you, big human, Jack chuckled softly. I'm glad you're okay. Lyra stepped into the room, her expression soft as she watched the two interact. She's been asking about you every moment since you woke up. She calls you her protector. Jack looked at Lyra, his heart sinking a little. I didn't expect this. I didn't think it would mean so much. Lyra smiled faintly. It means everything, Jack. You did not just save a child. You saved a future. Jack, still confused, didn't know what to say. He had never wanted to be a hero. He'd just done what he felt was right. But as he looked at the child and saw the gratitude in Lyra's eyes, something inside him began to shift. Maybe, just maybe, his life would never be the same again. Jack had never imagined he would be sitting across from an alien in what could only be described as a royal hall. The walls were smooth and silver, glowing faintly in the dim light. The chairs were designed in a way that Jack had never seen before, and curved, made for beings unlike humans. Yet here he was, on a strange ship, face to face with the very species he had once fought against. Lyra, alien leader, sat across from him, her deep blue skin shimmering in the soft light. Glowing with an inner light, fixed on him with an intensity that made Jack uneasy. He still couldn't quite understand everything that had happened. How went from being a soldier on a battlefield to being honored as a hero by the very aliens he had been taught to hate. "I never thought this day would come," Jack muttered. Looking around the room, "Never thought I'd be sitting here like this." Lyra's eyes softened. She reached forward and placed a hand on the table between them, her voice calm yet firm. "The day you saved my daughter, Jack, it changed everything. Not just for you, but for my people." Jack raised an eyebrow. "I didn't do anything special. I just saved your child." Lyra smiled, a quiet but knowing smile. "What you did was extraordinary. But it is more than just your bravery. It is the beginning of a tradition that stretches back for centuries among my people." Jack leaned forward slightly. "What do you mean? I don't understand." Lyra's voice became softer, but the gravity of her words was clear. "There is a custom in our culture, one that is ancient and sacred. When one of our people is saved by someone from another species, especially in such a selfless way, that person is bound to our family by a debt. Okay, a life debt, we call it. It's the one who saved the life of a member of our race becomes part of that family in a way that goes beyond just gratitude." Jack blinked, trying to process her words. "You're telling me that by saving your daughter, I'm now part of your family?" "Yes," Lyra replied simply. "By saving my daughter, you have become bound to our people. It is not something that can be undone. Your actions, though done in the heat of the moment, have set in motion a tradition that has been honored for generations." Jack felt his heart race. "But I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to become part of your family. I just wanted to help." Lyra's gaze softened even further. "I know, Jack. I understand that. But what you did, what you gave, was more than just helping. It was an act of courage and compassion that none of us expected from a human. You didn't hesitate to protect my child even when you knew it might cost you your life." Jack looked down at his hands, still trembling slightly from the memory of the explosion. He had acted without thinking, without concern for himself. It had been instinct, nothing more. And yet it had meant something far more than he could have ever imagined. "I didn't think of it that way," Jack admitted quietly. "I just did what anyone would have done." Lyra shook her head. "Not everyone would have done what you did. And now, the debt you've incurred cannot be repaid with mere words or thanks. You are bound to my family, and my people will honor that debt, just as I will." Jack sat back in his chair, stunned. "So what happens now? What do I have to do?" Lyra's eyes met his, full of sincerity. "The life debt does not mean you will be forced into anything you do not want, but it means you will be honored, respected, and included in our world. As my daughter's protector, you will always have a place in our society. You will be treated as one of us." Jack tried to wrap his mind around the enormity of what Lyra was saying. He was no longer just a soldier. He was now part of an alien family, an enemy species, one that could easily have destroyed humanity in an instant. And yet here he was, being honored by them. "But I'm still a human," Jack said. Slowly. "I don't belong here. I have my own people, my own life." Lyra nodded, as if she had expected him to say that. "I understand. I will not ask you to forget your own world. But the bond between us cannot be ignored. My people will always look to you as an ally, and I too will look to you as something more than just a protector. You have earned my respect, Jack." Jack was silent for a long moment, the weight of her words sinking in. The whole situation felt surreal. How could he, a simple soldier, be caught up in something so complicated? Lyra continued, her tone more personal now. "There is something else you should know, Jack. The life debt is not just a tradition of honor. It is also a bond between two souls. In our culture, it means that you and I are now connected in a way that goes beyond mere words. Your bravery, your sacrifice, has created a deep connection between us, one that neither of us can ignore." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "You saying that we're connected in that way?" Lyra's gaze did not waver. "Yes, Jack. In a way that cannot be broken. It is part of the tradition. You are now part of my life, just as I am now part of yours." This is a bond of respect, of gratitude, and perhaps something more. Jack swallowed, trying to process the meaning of her words. A part of him wanted to refuse, wanted to tell her that this was all too much. But another part of him, something deeper inside, felt a strange pull toward her, a sense that perhaps there was more to this connection than he could understand. Lyra leaned in slightly, her voice low and steady. "You may not understand yet, Jack, but over time you will see that the bond between us is not just about saving a life. It is about creating something new, together." Jack wasn't sure how to respond. He wasn't sure if he wanted to respond. But as he looked into Lyra's glowing eyes, he couldn't help but feel that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't even imagine. The days after Jack's conversation with Lyra were a blur of strange new experiences. He spent most of his time aboard the alien ship, trying to understand the overwhelming changes in his life. He had always thought of himself as just a soldier, someone who followed orders, fought for his people, and never questioned the path he was on. But now, he was a hero to the enemy, a part of their family in a way that made him feel more lost than ever. Every time he passed a mirror or looked down at his hands, it felt like he didn't recognize himself anymore. His body had changed since the explosion. At first, he had thought it was just the pain of his injuries, but as the days passed, Jack realized that something more was happening. His strength had increased, and his reflexes were sharper. Even his senses seemed to be heightened. He could hear the softest sounds and see things more clearly than ever before. Lyra had explained that the alien technology on the ship had begun to interact with his injured body, particularly the damage to his spine. What had once been a broken, fragile part of him was now enhanced, stronger than it had ever been. The spine injury that had almost killed him was now the key to his transformation. His recovery had gone beyond anything human doctors could have predicted. He wasn't just healed, he was different. As strange as it was, Jack couldn't deny the changes. His physical appearance hadn't altered much, but his abilities were now far beyond human limits. And with the increased strength came an unexpected sense of power, power that felt as foreign to him as the alien ship around him. One evening, as Jack sat alone in his room, trying to process everything, there was a knock at the door. He didn't need to be told who it was. He could feel Lyra's presence even before she spoke. "May I come in?" Lyra's voice was gentle but firm, as always. "Of course," Jack said, standing up from the table where he had been sitting. He felt a strange tightness in his chest whenever she was near, feeling he didn't fully understand. Lyra stepped into the room, her glowing blue eyes meeting his. "How are you feeling, Jack?" she asked, her voice softening as she studied him closely. "I'm getting used to it," Jack replied, trying to find the right words. "I didn't expect any of this to happen. I didn't ask for any of this." Lyra smiled. But there was something more in her expressions, something deeper, almost like a shared understanding. "No one ever asks for such things, but your actions have bound us together in ways neither of us can ignore." Jack shifted uncomfortably, unsure of how to respond. The bond she spoke of was still confusing, something he wasn't sure how to handle. Part of him wanted to push back, to reject the idea that he was now tied to this alien race. But the other part of him, the part that had saved Lyra's daughter, the part that had felt the weight of their tradition, that part couldn't deny that there was something real between them. "Do you ever wish things were different?" Jack asked, his voice quieter now. "That we were just strangers? That I was still just a soldier on Earth, and you were just another alien enemy?" Lyra's eyes softened, and she stepped closer to him. I have lived my life with the knowledge that one day I might meet someone who could change everything. I just never expected it to be someone like you." Jack looked down at his hands, the strange new strength in them, making him feel even more out of place. "I didn't ask for any of this, Lyra. I didn't ask to be some symbol of peace between our people. I just wanted to protect that child." "You did more than protect her," Lyra replied gently. "You gave her life, Jack. You gave us all a future. Your actions have created something new for both of us." Jack was silent. For a long time, his mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. He wanted to run away from it all, to escape back to the life he knew, but deep down, he knew he couldn't. He had made a choice when he dove in front of that blast to protect the alien child. And now that choice had led him down a path he couldn't walk back from. "I don't know if I can be what you want me to be," Jack said finally, his voice low and unsure. "I do not expect you to be anything." "Jack," Lyra said, her voice soft and understanding, "I only ask that you let yourself see the possibilities in this bond. This is not just about duty or tradition. It is about us, what we can build together." Jack's heart pounded in his chest. There was something in her words, something in the way she looked at him that made him feel different. He didn't know if it was love or respect or something else entirely, but he felt a connection to her that he had never felt before. Maybe it was the life debt. Maybe it was the transformation that was happening to him. Or maybe it was just the weight of everything that had happened. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," Jack said quietly, looking at Lyra. "But I can't deny that I feel something too." Lyra reached out and gently touched his arm, her touch warm and reassuring. "You don't have to be ready right away, Jack. We have time. This bond will grow with time. You are not alone in this. We will face whatever comes next together." Jack took a deep breath, his mind still spinning, but something in his chest settled. He wasn't sure where this journey would take him, but for the first time since waking up on this alien ship, he didn't feel completely lost. Maybe, just maybe, he could learn to accept this new reality. Maybe in time he could find peace in it. As Lyra turned to leave, Jack called out to her softly, "Lyra, thank you." She paused and looked back at him, her eyes glowing with understanding. "We're welcome, Jack. And remember, no matter where this path takes us, you are not alone." As she left, Jack stood there, feeling the weight of her words settle over him. His life had changed in ways he never expected. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't the same person who had walked into this alien ship. He was stronger, more connected, and maybe, just maybe, he was ready for whatever came next. Jack had only just begun to get used to his new life aboard the alien ship when the trouble started. His physical transformation was undeniable. Every day he felt stronger and faster, more aware of his surroundings. His senses were sharper than ever before, and the pain in his back had faded, replaced by a strange sense of power. He was becoming something more than human, and he didn't know how to feel about it. Lyra had been kind, guiding him through these changes, but she had also warned him that there was more to this new life than just physical strength. The connection between them, the bond of life debt, was something that couldn't be ignored. Jack had tried to ignore it, to keep his distance, but every time he looked at Lyra, he couldn't help but feel the pull between them. They were connected now in ways that Jack couldn't quite understand. The alien culture had rituals and expectations he hadn't fully grasped, but what he did understand was that Lyra wasn't just an alien leader to him anymore. She was someone who had saved him in more ways than one. But even as Jack tried to figure out his feelings, a darker shadow was hanging over him. The war between the humans and the aliens was far from over, and the life debt he had unknowingly accepted was now a symbol of peace. Peace that many did not want to see happen. It was late one evening when Jack's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden, urgent knock on the door. His heart skipped a beat. He had been spending more time alone lately, trying to clear his head, but something in the tone of the knock made him jump to his feet. "Come in," he called out, his voice a little too sharp. The door slid open, and a figure stepped inside. It was a soldier, a human, not an alien. Jack didn't recognize him immediately, but there was something familiar about his face. The man's eyes were wide, and his face was pale with fear. "Jack," the soldier said, his voice trembling. "You need to hear this." Jack's stomach twisted with unease. "What's going on?" The soldier hesitated, then pulled a small device from his belt. The screen flickered to life, showing a grainy video. It was a recording of a meeting, a secret meeting. Jack's heart sank as he recognized some of the figures in the footage. High-ranking officials from both human and alien factions gathered together in what looked like an underground bunker. They were discussing something in low, urgent tones. "This is from a few days ago," the soldier said, his voice tense. Planning something, Jack. Something that could end everything you've been working for. Jack leaned closer to the screen, trying to make sense of the conversation. From what he could hear, it was clear that a faction of humans and aliens, those who didn't support the peace between the two races, were planning an attack. They were preparing to sabotage the fragile truce and reignite the war. They want to kill you, Jack, the soldier said, his voice barely above a whisper. They know what you represent now. You're a symbol of peace between the two sides. They can't let that happen. Jack stood up, his mind racing. He had suspected that not everyone on either side wanted peace, but seeing the proof on the screen made his stomach churn. He had become a target, a symbol that some were willing to destroy at any cost. What can we do? Jack asked, his voice steady, though his heart was pounding. We need to stop them before it's too late. The soldier nodded. We've been trying to gather information, but we need your help. You're more than just a soldier now. You're part of their world. You have access to things we don't. If we're going to stop this, we need to act quickly. We need to warn Lyra, too. She can help us. Jack's thoughts raced. He hadn't expected to be thrust back into a fight so soon, but this was different. This wasn't just about defeating an enemy. This was about saving the future of both races. I'll help, Jack said firmly. But we need to move fast. They're not going to wait for us to act. The soldier nodded, looking relieved. I'll gather the others. Go to Lyra. She needs to know what's coming. Jack didn't waste another second. He didn't know exactly what he was going to say to Lyra, but he knew he had to warn her. As he made his way through the ship, the halls seemed to stretch longer than usual. He could hear the soft hum of the ship's engines, but there was an unsettling silence in the air, as if everything was holding its breath. When he reached Lyra's quarters, he found her sitting at a table, going over some reports. She looked up as he entered, her eyes immediately locking onto his with concern. Jack, she said, standing up. What's wrong? Without waiting for a response, Jack stepped forward, his voice low but urgent. Lyra, there's a plot to destroy the peace. Some humans and aliens are planning an attack. They want to kill me to end the truce before it can take root. We need to act fast. Lyra's expression shifted instantly from calm to alarmed. She stood up, her eyes narrowing as she processed the news. How do you know this? How can we trust it? Jack took a deep breath. I saw the proof. There's a recording. I've already warned the others. We don't have much time. Lyra paced across the room, her mind clearly working through the possibilities. This is worse than I thought. If we don't stop them, the peace between our people will shatter before it ever has a chance to truly begin. We will stop them, Jack said, his voice filled with determination. Together. Lyra looked back at him, her eyes glowing with intensity. You are right. We cannot let this happen. But we will need all of our allies, and we need to move quickly. The time for hesitation is over. Jack nodded. He knew the road ahead would be dangerous. But he also knew that if they didn't act, everything he had fought for, the peace, the bond he had formed with Lyra, would be destroyed as they made their plans. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger struggle. A battle not just for survival, but for the future of both their worlds. And this time, he wasn't just fighting for humanity. He was fighting for the future of everyone, human and alien alike. The days following Jack's discovery of the plot to destroy the peace were some of the most stressful of his life. He and Lyra worked tirelessly, gathering allies and making plans to stop the hidden faction that sought to reignite the war. Step they took seemed to raise more questions, and every answer only seemed to reveal deeper, darker secrets. Jack had never been a strategist. He had always been a soldier, trained to fight, not to lead. But the weight of his position, his new role as a symbol of peace, forced him to step up in ways he never imagined. Lyra, on the other hand, was a natural leader. Her experience and wisdom guided their every move. She was a rock, calm and unshakable. Even when everything around them seemed to be falling apart, it was the night before they planned to confront the traitors. The ship was quiet, a stillness hanging in the air like a warning. Jack sat alone in his quarters, running over the plan in his mind. He knew that this would be a turning point. They either succeeded, and the peace would survive, or they failed, and everything they had fought for would be lost. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. He didn't need to be told who it was. He had felt Lyra's presence in the hall long before the knock. "Come in," Jack called out, his voice steady but tired. The door slid open and Lyra entered, her blue skin glowing faintly in the low light. She looked just as tired as he felt, but her eyes were sharp, focused. She moved toward him, her steps measured and graceful. "You're still awake," she said, her voice soft but full of understanding. "You should rest, Jack." Jack shook his head. "I can't sleep. Not until this is over." Lyra paused for a moment, then sat down across from him. Her eyes softened as she studied him, as though searching for something. "You've been through a lot, Jack, more than anyone should ever have to face. But you're not alone in this. You never were." Jack didn't know how to respond to that. The bond they shared, the life debt that had brought them together, was still something. He was trying to understand. It was more than just a connection between two people. It was a bond between two worlds, symbol of unity in the face of destruction. "I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow," Jack said, his voice low. "I don't know if we're going to win or if we're walking into a trap." Lyra placed a hand on his, her touch warm and reassuring. "Whatever happens, Jack, we face it together. We always will." Her words sent a surge of strength through him, and for a brief moment, Jack allowed himself to believe that they could win, that they could change everything. But the doubts were still there, lingering in the back of his mind. "We need to be ready for anything," Jack said after a pause. "If we fail, the peace is gone. And if we succeed, we still have a long road ahead of us." Lyra nodded. "I know that. But tomorrow, we'll do what we must. We'll fight for this peace, for our future." As the night stretched on, Jack and Lyra went over the final details of the plan, making sure that every angle was covered. The traitors had supporters on both sides, human and alien, and it wouldn't be easy to root them out. But with the right allies and the element of surprise, they believed they could expose the conspiracy before it was too late. The next morning they were ready. Jack stood at the edge of the ship's command center, watching as the crew worked in a flurry of activity, preparing for the mission ahead. His heart was pounding, his hands clenched into fists. He was ready to fight. But part of him wanted to run to escape the responsibility that weighed on his shoulders. But there was no turning back now. Lyra appeared beside him, her presence calming, yet as determined as ever. "We've done everything we can," she said softly. "Now we see if it's enough." Jack nodded, though his stomach churned. "I'm with you, Lyra. Whatever happens." Together they walked into the heart of the ship, where their forces were gathered. There were humans and aliens standing side by side, all united under the banner of peace. Jack had never seen such a sight before. It gave him hope that maybe, just maybe, they could make a difference. But there was no time to waste. Lyra gave the order, and the mission began. The plan was simple. It would infiltrate the meeting where the traitors were gathering, expose them, and prevent them from carrying out their attack. The humans and aliens loyal to the peace would work together to take down the conspirators, using the element of surprise to their advantage. As they moved through the corridors of the ship, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. His heightened senses told him that something was off. The air was thick with tension, and every shadow seemed to hide a threat. But there was no turning back now. When they reached the meeting room, Jack's heart raced. He could hear voices on the other side of the door, the traitors discussing their plans in hushed tones. Lyra signaled for the team to prepare. Then, with a swift motion, she pushed open the door. The room erupted into chaos. The traitors turned. In shock, as the loyal soldiers rushed in, weapons drawn, Jack's heart was pounding as he moved forward, eyes locked on the leaders of the conspiracy. He could see the fear in their eyes, the realization that their plan was falling apart. "Stop!" Jack shouted, his voice firm. "This ends now." The traitors hesitated, looking between each other as if trying to decide whether to fight or surrender. Jack stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the weight of everything on his shoulders, the future of two worlds hanging in the balance. But before anyone could make a move, Lyra's voice rang out, clear and commanding. "You have betrayed us all," she said, her voice full of authority. "There is no place for your hatred in this new world we are building." One by one, the traitors were disarmed, their plans exposed for all to see. The battle was over before it had truly begun. And though the danger was far from gone, Jack knew that they had won the first victory in what would be a long and difficult fight for peace. As the room settled into a tense silence, Jack looked at Lyra, their eyes meeting for a brief moment. This was just the beginning. But for the first time, he felt hope. Together, they could face whatever came next.